Hello there. Welcome into First Take. Come on in. Stephen A. Smith, Max Kellerman. I'm Molly Karam. How we doing,
What's
everybody?
Going on? What's up, y'all? How you doing? How you doing?
We got a lot going
right?
on a Tuesday show.
Let's roll.
Coming up, we'll make sure to get into Stephen A.'s favorite topic, the Cowboys. Is this their year, or is it just the accident waiting to happen? Don't miss that a little later in the show, but we start, of course, with Monday Night Football, where it was not the Jets' evening, getting pummeled by the Cardinals 28-3. New York has now lost 4 straight, falling to 1-5. Ryan Fitzpatrick threw his 4th red zone interception this season, most in the NFL, and has 0 passing TDs in 10 interceptions in the second half. He was pulled in the 4th quarter last night in favor of Geno. Here's Todd Bowles.
Well, the game was 28-3, and it was 8 minutes left in the game. We weren't doing anything else. I just wanted to get him some reps.
So there's no chance of a quarterback change, Todd?
He was like a relief pitcher, a starting pitcher. Isn't doing it this game, this day. He put in a relief pitcher. Fitz will be back next week.
Did you think at all? I mean, obviously it wasn't all Fitz's fault, but just to get a spark. I mean, obviously your offense has been struggling for nearly a month now. Just to,
well, it definitely wasn't Fitz's fault. I mean, he barely had time to throw, so anybody would have put back, they would have had a problem today.
Stephen A., 1-5. How much is Ryan Fitzpatrick to blame for the Jets' struggles?
Well, you can't ignore the fact that the quarterback has a lot to do with it. But those out there who want to sit up there and put primarily the blame on his shoulders, I'd beg to differ. I'm fully aware of the interceptions that he's thrown, like 0 touchdowns, 10 interceptions in the second half of every, in the second half of games this season. 4 of those interceptions coming in the red zone. I'm fully aware of the ineptitude, the flagrant ineptitude that has been exercised by Ryan Fitzpatrick. But where I'm going to disagree with my man is that I don't think he's primarily to blame. When you look at the New York Jets having the offense that ranks dead last, I'm looking at the fact that they had 33 yards rushing last night. They have no running game. Matt Forte or whatever's been happening with them has been a disappointment, whether it's his fault, the fault of the offensive line, whatever the case may be. But I'm primarily looking at this defense because as inept as their offense has been, I cannot believe how putrid the Jets' defense has been this year. They're the 25th ranked defense in the National Football League. With that front four, which Bruce Arians is on the record as saying is arguably the best in all of football with Muhammad Wilkinson and Williams and those boys. I mean, are you kidding me? And you're 28th against the pass. You can't defend the pass because Screen can't defend anybody. I mean, this dude was operating in the slot. When they had Revis back years ago, they had Revis, they had Antonio Cromartie. Screen was that dude that looked better than serviceable. He looked pretty damn good coming over from the Cleveland Browns. You had him defending in the slot. He was doing fine. Now you got him out there. He looked like he can't defend anybody. And so when I look at it from that perspective, I really got serious questions. And I'm looking at these guys right here. You got Screen and Revis. You got Pryor and Gilchrist. What kind of a secondary is that? They pose no threat. They're not striking fear in anybody's heart. Now you got folks attacking Revis. There was once upon a time where you wouldn't even attempt to even throw towards Revis Island. You knew better. That's not the case any longer. So since they're willing to attack Revis, you know what they're willing to do with everybody else. And I can't believe that I'm looking at the Jets, who are awful, who are pathetic. They are just an embarrassment right now. They look like they didn't even want to play football in the second half last night. It was a disgraceful performance. And Fitzpatrick, without question, hasn't made it any better. He hasn't been able to stop the bleeding, the hemorrhaging. But I still believe, as important as the quarterback position is, Max, and as much onus as we put on the shoulders of a quarterback, and rightfully so, I think as it pertains to these particular New York Jets, I think there's a lot of blame to go around in a lot of other places, primarily their defense. There have been many offenses in the past that were putrid, but the team didn't look as bad as this team has looked. They're not just losing, they're getting beat down. They're getting embarrassed. And that's because they don't have people in their linebacking core and beyond who can defend and guard anybody. That, to me, is the biggest problem with the New York Jets, not the quarterback.
When you have a record as bad as the Jets, you have lots of problems. The defense is one of them, but you're exactly wrong. Primarily, the problem is at quarterback and Ryan Fitzpatrick, who, by the way, has not been a good NFL quarterback. Look, of course, he's one of the greatest quarterbacks on earth. I get it. He plays in the NFL. He even starts some seasons. But he's been in the league a long time, and he's had exactly 2 good years. And I don't think, coincidentally, they were both in contract years, in walk years. That's when he put up his big years. And the Jets wisely didn't give him a big, long contract that he was looking for because he's been a career journeyman, a very good backup / below average starter who in his best years fits comfortably in the middle of the pack as a starter, and there have only been 2 of them, it's Fitzpatrick's fault. Look, it's demoralizing when you can't score, and I know they've been playing good defenses, but listen to these point totals that this offense is putting up. And by the way, I know Decker's missed the last several games. Brandon Marshall, I once said this about Steve Nash when I was doing Around the Horn. I think Nash was still on the Mavericks. And I'm going to say it about Brandon Marshall now. I know there are better receivers than Brandon Marshall. But when I'm watching Brandon Marshall play, I can't think of who they are. When my eyeballs are fixed on Brandon Marshall on the football field, I think, you tell me there's a better receiver than this?
I can come up with several because Brandon Marshall has dropped his share of passes this year, including first down catches. He's dropped passes.
Brandon Marshall is so good.
He is so good.
He's so good. It's scary. And Fitz just misses him. Fitzpatrick misses him all the time. He doesn't give his receiver, particularly if there's a real guy covering him. The receivers have no shot. Listen to these points totals last 4 games. And I don't care what your defense is. 3, 17, 13,
3.
and 3.
36 points in the last 4 games.
In 4 games. Now, you say, well, that's not all the quarterback's fault. Let's isolate quarterback play as much as possible. Of course, offensive line, everything plays into it. 28th in the NFL in QBR. Is QBR a perfect statistic? No. But it's the best shorthand we have currently, right? Mm-hmm. You look 28th overall in QBR. He's among the very worst quarterbacks in the league, which, by the way, throughout his career, if you start him, that's more or less where you can expect him to be, which is why he's not usually a starter. The Jets have subpar quarterback play, and they have so many problems. You're right, they have a lot of problems, that they need at least par quarterback play. If not above par, they're not getting it, so they're a bad team right now, period.
Well, if they were a bad team, then we can't put it all on the quarterback. Last year, their defense was ranked 9th. Last year, their offense was ranked 11th. Their rushing attack was a top 10 rushing attack. They got serviceable production from a Bilal Powell and a Chris Ivory. Now you've got Matt Forte. I mean, Revis Island has looked like Ellis Island now. We all understand that there has been change that has taken place. It's just the truth. And so when I'm looking at it, I'm just simply saying, look, let's call it what it is. The defense is letting you down. We understand that the offense has been abysmal. We understand that Ryan Fitzpatrick has been awful. But we can't put it all on him when we're looking at a Matt Forte who's not generating anything. When we're looking at an Eric Decker who's down. How about the tight end spot, okay? You've got tight ends on the New York Jets that haven't caught a pass in over a year. It's just that bad. Now, think about this for a second here. Dak Prescott is a 4th-round rookie. A rookie. And primarily, most of his targets are to Jason Witten and Cole Beasley in between the numbers, even though Cole Beasley is not a tight end. He's a slot receiver, which is damn near the same thing. We know what lends itself towards the greatness of a Tom Brady because he's got Gronkowski and now Martellus Bennett. So we understand the importance of the tight end spot. What level of production have we got from the New York Jets? I don't see it.
But that's somewhat also on the quarterback.
I'm not saying that. I'm not absolving him. If I were absolving him, I would appreciate your argument more.
Primarily, it's not him. I'm saying there are lots of problems. Primarily, it is him. Primarily, it's the quarterback.
I think primarily it's the defense. And I think combine that with the lack of production from the tight end spot lends itself towards, listen, the combination of your tight end not stepping up because Jason Morrow was hurt pretty much all of last year. They haven't got much production this year as well. Combo of lack of production from the tight end spot combined with the lack of production from your running backs. That puts more pressure on a journeyman quarterback.
I want to address that. Not the tight ends. That's partly quarterback, too. When you are playing from behind, the running back's not going to get used as much or used in high leverage moments because they're not there.
When you're scoring
Number 2.
3 points in 2 of the last 4 games, guess what? I'm sorry. That's not just you being behind. That's you having an inability to score.
When you're playing from behind, the running back's not going to get a lot of carries. Number 2, the turnover differential, the margin for the Jets, is the worst in football, beating my Giants by 1. They are minus 11 turnover differential. Do you know how many interceptions Ryan Fitzpatrick has thrown? 11.
Yes.
They're minus 11 turnover differential. Their quarterback has thrown 11 interceptions. But you notice something that fits there?
I get where you're coming from.
That fits? F-I-T-Z there? Huh? Fits?
That was good.
It was good, but corny at the same time, but I hear you.
Well, it was
Here's the point that I understand. I'm not holding it against you. You ain't a comedian. I get it. But the point that I'm trying to make to you is this. Max, nobody's acknowledging. Nobody's failing to acknowledge that Fitzpatrick, is throwing interceptions. What I'm saying is you can't ignore whether it's the offensive line, that's the fault of Matt Forte, whether it's age and attrition, which is why Chicago was willing to lose out on Matt Forte and let him go. The only tight end, I'm looking at the Jets' season number, season 6 games max, Molly. You have one tight end listed on here. His name is Brandon Bostic. He's got 1 reception for 9 yards in 6 games.
You mentioned
there is no production coming from dudes in between the numbers. You're asking Ryan Fitzpatrick, without a running game, with a tight end that's non-existent, to beat you by throwing outside the numbers to a wide receiver everybody and their grandmother knows is going to get the ball because he's the only option that you have.
Last year, Fitzpatrick probably had the best season of his career. A lot of the reason people were excited that he was in and not Geno is because of Geno's bad play, not because Fitzpatrick's so good. They just thought he's a decent enough quarterback that he can make good. Got people's hopes up just when he needed to have a big game to get in the playoffs. He had the worst game of his season. Fitzgerald, who you mentioned earlier, is still a good player. Fitzpatrick is still a bad player. It's always been the same.
Listen, I am not saying that Fitzpatrick is great. I am saying that he doesn't deserve to own this. Even last year, the Jets had 2,000-yard receivers in Brandon Marshall and Eric Decker. You had Cumberland as a tight end. You had Kellen Davis, who showed up as a tight end. I'm just saying to you,
no. When a team has one win, it's usually the tight end, not the quarterback.
No, it's not a team. We're talking about the Jets. We're not going to your analytic things that you like to do. We're pointing at the New York Jets.
Yes.
You blame the tight end, blame the quarterback. Absence of a running back, suspect offensive line, combined with your defense, and you're going to look at Fitzpatrick.
If only they had a tight end.
I'm not going to do that.
If only they had a tight end.
You know what? It helps Dak Prescott a lot.
What that tells me is there is a myriad of issues, but a lot of us thought this was a playoff team heading into the season. Clearly not the case. We want to know what you think at home. Is Ryan Fitzpatrick to blame for the Jets' 1-5 start? Go on Twitter and vote. We'll share those results a little later in the show.